Welcome to Biztech's APAC Cybersecurity Show. Now, today on the show, we have Vivek Gullapalli. He's the Chief Information Security Officer for Asia Pacific at Checkpoint Software. Now, Checkpoint Software is a NASDAQ-listed company that's a leading provider of cybersecurity solutions to governments and enterprises globally. Their solutions protect over 100,000 customers from cyber attacks with industry-leading solutions. To tell us more about this, Vivek, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad to be here.
Now, Vivek, for a start, we're at the end of 2023. What are some of the most significant cybersecurity challenges or trends that you've observed in the Asia-Pacific region this year?
2023 has been an interesting year, right? I mean, the reason for that is, first thing, we're all happy to get out of COVID. Life returned to normalcy a bit. But on the other hand, AI charmed the world, right? And it's been the talk of the town everywhere. And if you look at cybersecurity, it's practically the same. Post-COVID, digitization has changed the way we live. Cashless payments is everywhere. And thus, the adoption of digital and the benefits of digital, the businesses have seen, and there is a lot more rapid adoption by businesses to go digital. And there are a lot of pluses and minuses in that whole piece, but primarily a lot of pluses. But what that has resulted in is that everything being digital also has increased the propensity of threat actors to be able to get into these organizations and break into them. So everything from attacks on ports you see in Japan, all the way to Australia, to banking sector, to healthcare sector, to telcos have been hugely impacted, resulting in effects to the common man. In addition to that, you are seeing frauds at a very high level that's affecting the common man. In Singapore alone, the Singapore police force reported close to 2 billion of frauds, which are tied to the common man, which are getting impacted by frauds which are targeting at them. And there's just a lot of regulations and others are definitely coming out in that space. Lastly, AI is extremely vital from two aspects. Number one is that it's becoming a tool by the threat actors to be able to use deepfakes. And we have seen some of the deepfakes on social media, and some people have a good laugh about, politicians and singers and their deepfakes being made fun of, which is definitely interesting. But think about if these deepfakes are impersonating a renowned person, a CEO or a CFO, and asking you to approve something, how will a common man in that business or entity ignore that message? And that's going to be extremely challenging. And that's what is the trend that we are seeing in APAC as well. Just to throw a bit of numbers around it, APAC is one of the highest targeted areas in the world. It's close to 2,000 attacks that we are seeing widely. And this number is around 15% more than the previous year. So that's a significant increase overall in APAC.
Now, why is that? Is that 2,000 a day, a week, a month? What's that?
Well, it's around a week.
Okay.
Right.
And why is that? Because the bad actors are a lot more organized now and structured, and they're going not just for the big guys, but also for smaller targets.
It's a combination of many things, right? Number one is that huge amount of digitization because of COVID. Everything has become a lot more digital, so it's a lot more easier to access, which also includes digital transformation and cloud as well. All right. While this was happening, many organizations did not prioritize security, especially during the COVID time, because they're more focused on getting and enabling the business. So security was a bit more of the afterthought along that. So there's a lot of gaps that really occurred in that particular space. The second is the threat actors have been a lot more creative with using tools like AI, and they don't need to worry about ethics or ethical side of the fence. So they're able to use a lot of those capabilities to kind of target some of those attacks in that space. So it's a combination of the two that's coming together in 2023, and thus resulting in high volumes. And there is another significant area which is not very well talked about. While crypto had a big burst in 2022, but crypto coming to limelight also allowed for movement of money for the bad actors using crypto exchanges, which was not there before that, right? And most of the ransomware demands are always not in hard cash or this digital money, but it's always in crypto. And having these crypto exchanges move money of these monies, right, makes it easier for bad guys to cash out. And thus ransomware attacks taking a lot of prominence in this
And
world.
Vivek, I want to talk to you a little bit more about ransomware attacks, because the ransomware attacks, supply chain attacks have been just more numerous. And because you have an APAC remit, the regulations on disclosure vary dramatically. Some markets like Singapore, you are required to disclose. Other markets in less developed markets, you are not allowed, you're not expected to disclose. How is this then impacting the way the bad actors then are attacking companies and organizations specifically?
So, and that's a great question, right? So, because it's a combination of regulations, the expectations of disclosure, and the customer impact. So, if a company in APAC region or anywhere else in the world gets impacted, and by law, if they are required to report to the regulators, most of them do. I don't think so. There's a problem in that. The challenge occurs is that the customer is not, or the business is not necessarily regulated, but if there's a customer impact, the customer will feel the impact of that particular business not able to service them. And hence, that news gets out in one way or the other. The third aspect that we have seen a bit in the US, and which is very, very interesting, because the SEC this year talked about organizations having to report their cybersecurity risk to the exchange itself. And what that led to was very interesting. It was a side effect. One of the large organizations got impacted by ransomware. This organization took some time to report to the exchange, but the threat actors who had compromised these organizations went to the regulator and said, we have compromised this organization and they have not yet reported. And that's a double whammy, right?
Wow.
Which is very rare. So regulators or regulations being used by the threat actors, in addition to what already being is a bit of pressure for many of these organizations, is a total different league that we are seeing. So where I'm going with this, that regulations will definitely catch up and come up across the board, where they expect that organizations need to report what they are when they are under pressure from cyber attacks and things like that. That's an important element. And this is all for the common good, so that these bad actors can be brought to justice. Because at the end of the day, you want to put a stop to the cyber criminals. If these crimes don't get reported, you cannot bring these criminals to justice. So there is definitely a big need for this to level up in that particular space. And many of the regulators which I speak to in the region, they're all developing in the same fashion, but the priority of getting this rolled out requires a different legislation and time based on the countries that they operate in. So Australia is another great example. You can see a lot of activities happening in Australia. And recently, I think they had a major attack on ports, and 4 ports were down in Australia, with 40% of ship trafficking and goods being impacted.
And they had the Optus one as well very recently.
Yes, Optus, yes. The second one was not a ransomware type one, it was something else. But the port one was tied to, and that's what was reported. But based on that, a lot of changes have come into Australia with new regulations and cybersecurity strategy, including the need for the board to take cybersecurity seriously and do an endorsement annually. And that's something that is changing from a regulations perspective in Australia. Of course, it will first focus on the higher critical areas from what Australia sees it, but eventually I'm sure it will get expanded to other areas of business as well.
So that's a very interesting thing, because that will set the stage for the rest of the region, perhaps as a roadmap for the rest of the region from a regulatory framework standpoint.
Exactly. So most of the time, the regulators talk to each other, and it's not new. We have seen this with various other industries that are maturing, right? So if you look at the car industry, when the car industry came 100 years back, right, there was no concept of car insurance or and car certification and stuff like that. Cars used to run on the roads and things like that. But when car accidents happened, there was a need for certification of cars, and driver's license and car insurance and things like that. And today this is practically universally standard that we don't even question. Cyber is a very nascent industry, and every government and regulators are learning from it, and they learn not from what is happening in their country but across the world. And these regulators collaborate because they want businesses to be able to operate harmoniously across the globe as well. So the regulations will be similar. There could be a bit of local nuances or tweaks to it, but overall, it will come to that similar space like we see in the car industry, where things need to be there. For example, when you buy a car, you don't go and ask, does the car have a brake? Right? You don't even think about it, right? Right? It's practically, it's like, so, and that's the stage of evolution that will happen in cybersecurity. It's still a very, very early field and it's still growing.
Okay, so now, Vivek, I'm going to put you in the spot because as the Chief Information Security Officer of a global leading software company in cybersecurity, what are your top priorities for 2024 to help your clients?
So that's a great question, right? So this year I've spent a lot of time talking to close to 300 plus clients in APAC, which includes board members, CEOs, and the CISOs. And hearing them and their pain points, the messaging is loud and clear. What businesses are tired of is that the numerous cyber attacks and the struggle for the business is immense. So what they're asking is something basic and very simple, that before a cyber attack, during a cyber attack, and after a cyber attack, my business should be able to continue. They're happy to pour in the investment dollars, but currently they do not have the confidence on cybersecurity, which is the game they would like to change. And that's where Checkpoint heavily ends up focusing. So if you look at any organization that's out there, they require controls all the way from endpoint, mobile, cloud, data center, network, and everything. And today, what they happen to be doing is buying different pieces of the puzzle and trying to all integrate it themselves. Like the Wright brothers, everybody is trying to build their own aeroplane. Whereas what you should be actually doing is work with a security business partner that provides a security ecosystem that can protect the business holistically. And
Okay,
that's
but
the
Vivek, I challenge you on that because there's another school of thought that says, hey, then we only have, and this is going back 30 years of how those of us who've worked in IT for that long, you need to eliminate a single point of failure and you have multiple redundancies. So if you have one point of failure, one vendor, you are exposing yourself potentially.
So let me answer that in two parts, right? First one, a bit of fun, right? We all take aeroplanes. And if you look at aeroplanes, an aeroplane can fly on one engine, but most aeroplanes still have two, right? Some of them have four, right? And most of them are manufactured by the same manufacturer, right? So the question is not about who is manufacturing the engine. Question is, are your security controls layered to protect against various scenarios? So if one control fails, you have something else that can take over and still manage. Because at the end of the day, are you in the business of security or are you business in providing services to your customer? So if you're a telco, your primary focus should be a telco, not cybersecurity, right? So the whole objective is to build a layered security model within your organization. And the key part is these security controls naturally should be able to talk to each other without a human intervention. So coming back to that whole aeroplane example, you look at just two pilots fly the entire aeroplane, and the aeroplane is far more complex, and we don't even worry about whether the aeroplane can take off and land safely. We simply get into the plane and ask the question, what is on the entertainment? What is the food they're going to serve? Are they going to get me some wine or whatever it is? And we just enjoy. And I can bet you will not even remember the name of the pilot, although he will announce it when you get on the plane.
Yes.
Right? So my aspiration for cybersecurity is that we got to get to that stage where we have fundamentally confidence in cybersecurity, confidence that organization can, before, during, and after a cyber attack, continue just like an aeroplane does without having to. There'll be turbulence, right? That needs to be managed and things like that. But you need a holistic security ecosystem that you can rely on, that you can have confidence on.
Now, then, next question for you, really, and key question: what key advice would you give CISOs across the region to help them navigate the cybersecurity landscape in 2024?
So 2024 will probably be a lot more hyper charged than 2023. AI will become a lot more mainstream. So you'll see the ferocity of attacks to such an extent that it is going to be very, very hard for humans to even detect. Today, we talk about security culture, ability to ask people to detect, is this a link? Is this a malicious link and things like that? But look at it. We are so used to QR code. How would a human being identify it's a good QR code or a bad QR code? That is definitely a big challenge, right? And we simply use QR code from everything from money to everything else today, including, if somebody gives you a visiting card, it's a QR code, right? And you don't even question, you simply take your phone and voila, and off it goes, right? So the entire shift with a lot of automation and where machines are talking to machines, and that will again come to fore in cyber in 2024. So what we got to do is fight fire with fire. While AI is also being used for the bad, but it can also be used for good. And I'll give an example. Take ransomware. It moves at such a hyper speed. If you take capabilities of the last 2 decades and use that model in cybersecurity, where you primarily focus on detection and response, by the time you respond, you probably are already impacted. What you need is a slightly different approach, right? You need a different approach so that you will get the result that you want. That means that you got to have confidence in prevention. It's not that you don't need detection response, but you got to have fundamentally confidence in prevention. And what that also means is that the power of the internet, AI, can be brought forth in such a way that the intelligence of that attack, if it has been seen anywhere else before, should be brought to your security control, which operate in your organization in milliseconds or even in microseconds. If that capability can be done, and that's where Checkpoint ends up operating, because like what you were summarizing earlier, we operate with close to 100,000 customers, and we've been around for the last 30 years with probes around the globe. We can able to sense and detect what's going around and bring that information back to our customers in a rapid manner, and that's giving them that intelligence in a bit more timely manner. And that's where I would like CISOs to think about. The second thing which I would like CISOs to think about is from the entire space about learning, right? There are a lot of great examples across the world where what has worked and what has not worked. For 2024, look at a way where you can manage your entire cybersecurity ecosystem using a single console. As an organization, when you look at or when you're buying a car, you don't even worry about what the dashboard looks like. But for cybersecurity, every organization ends up building their own dashboard. Rather, you're looking at unifying the security controls and having a single dashboard to manage the entire ecosystem. And that will simplify the entire approach. And it will also bring you a lot of cost advantages and other benefits, because the amount of training that you need for people within your organization to manage multiple security controls from different companies versus something that is unified, it makes it easier on talent as well to be able to manage. And talent is a huge problem across the industry. And, I'm sure that topic at some point will come up, right? And it always is a topic when I talk to
It's
many
a
of the
topic
people.
that we talk about all the time because we are
Yes,
globally we have this enormous shortage of cybersecurity talent.
exactly, right? And if you look at the numbers alone, I think it's staggering, right? When you talk to CISOs, I think the demand on cybersecurity talent is close to 60%. It's a lot higher than what it was in the previous years.
But
So
Vivek,
that,
what will change is this. AI is going to reduce the requirement for cybersecurity talent as the models basically scale up, correct?
I mean, so there is two aspects to it, right? For AI to actually work, you need good data, you need bad data, you need lots of data, right? And for every organization to be able to get to these three pieces is difficult. And for AI to be trained, you need two other aspects. You need an AI expert and you need a cybersecurity expert, right? And it is very hard for all of this to come together. So you still need talent. But what AI can actually help is speed up things where it needs to sped up, automate things which are mundane and routine. Thus, humans can still bring their key things which they are very good at, insights and intelligence, to train the AIs, and anything that's repeatable can be repeated. Right? I'm sure that many people today do not like a lot of the routine stuff, which is very administrative, and other parts with regards to correlation that can be automated. I'll give another example, right? That's common with many organizations. When they see something which is abnormal, most organizations take a snapshot of it, do forensics, do a reverse engineering. It's called malware reverse engineering. And once you do a reverse engineer, you identify what are the problems with it, and then feed this information into your security controls to be able to protect against this. But if this entire process can be automated, and machines can do that, and not just automated, you want to look at how this malware can evolve into other permutations and combinations and bring that intelligence back and pre-program all your security controls, then you are thinking and using AI to your advantage, which is very, very difficult to just rely on pure human talent. So what I'm seeing is that with AI, you will see that humans will get elevated to more higher levels rather than getting stuck in the more routine, mundane, side of the current challenges in cyber.
Vivek, it's been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much for taking your time to come on the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure having you.
Now, we've been speaking to Vivek Gullapalli. He's the Chief Information Security Officer for the Asia Pacific region at Checkpoint Software Technologies. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's APAC Cybersecurity Show. This show will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.